The CEO was ready to give up on love until she met a poor single dad that changed things entirely. The restaurant had never looked more beautiful. Candles on every table. Pine garlands wrapped around the staircase rail. A string quartet in the corner playing something soft and classical and completely indifferent to the fact that the most powerful woman in Chicago was sitting alone on Christmas Eve, being stared at. Natalie Hargrove did not look up from her menu. She had memorized it for minutes ago. She was reading it again because it gave her somewhere to put her eyes. Because the alternative was meeting the gaze of the couple at the next table who had been whispering since 6:45. Or the waiter, James, who had appeared 3 times now with the careful, sympathetic energy of someone who knew exactly what was happening and felt terrible about it. The reservation was for 2. The time was 7:21. The chair across from her was empty. Her blind date was 21 minutes late. On Christmas Eve. At Greystone, the most reservation impossible restaurant in Chicago, the kind of place where you called 3 months ahead and still got a call back asking you to confirm. Where being seen alone was not a neutral thing. Where the whispers had started soft and grown. She could feel the room watching her. She had spent her entire career learning to use rooms. She had never before felt used by one. Her phone was face down on the table. She had promised herself she would not check it. She checked it. No messages. She set it back down. James materialized. "Ms. Hargrove. Can I bring you anything while you wait?" "Water is fine," she said. "Thank you." He retreated. The couple at the next table murmured. She caught the word alone and the sound of a phone camera. She kept her face completely still and looked out the window at Christmas Eve in Chicago, the lights, the snow, the whole beautiful indifferent city continuing exactly as it always did whether she was in it or not. She picked up her own phone. Pulled up the half-typed message to Renata, "He's not coming. I'm leaving." Her thumb hovered. She thought, of course. Of course this is how it ends. One more person who looked like something he wasn't. She thought about Preston Cole. About what it had cost her to believe in someone completely. About the 4 years she'd spent converting that cost into armor. She almost pressed send. Then something quiet and stubborn in her chest said, "1 more minute." She did not know why she listened to it. She put the phone back down. And 30 seconds later, the door opened. Welcome back, everyone, to the place where love stories don't go the way anyone planned, and that turns out to be the whole point. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love knowing you're out there. Get comfortable. This one is going to take something from you. This is, the CEO was ready to give up on love until she met a poor single dad that changed things entirely. Natalie Hargrove was 39 years old and had not let anyone close in 4 years. Not since Preston. She had built Hargrove Technologies from 3 people in a rented office in Wicker Park into a company employing 4,000, operating in 6 countries, valued by Forbes at just over $1 billion. She had done it by being smarter than most rooms, working harder than was reasonable, and trusting her instincts about everything except, as it turned out, one person. Preston Cole had been everything she thought she wanted. Brilliant. Well-networked. Someone who matched her pace. They got engaged 18 months after meeting. The ring was beautiful. The announcement ran in the Tribune. And then a journalist called asking about a leak. Preston had been feeding her internal data to a competitor for 7 months. Acquisition timelines. Proprietary pricing. Roadmaps she hadn't shared with her full board. He had used their relationship as a key to every locked room in her company. He hadn't just broken her heart. He had used it as a door. The lawsuit dissolved him professionally. None of it gave her back what she'd lost, not the data, not the trust, and most of all not the version of herself that had believed in someone enough to stop calculating. Since then, 3 curated dinners, all ended early. Love reclassified from possibility to liability. Liabilities were managed. Contained. Written off. Until her best friend Renata Osei, her chief marketing officer and the only person on earth who could walk into her office uninvited without consequence, refused to let it stay that way. His name is Marcus, Renata had said. He's a single dad. He lost his wife 3 years ago. He works construction. He cannot benefit from knowing you professionally. And he is kind in a way I have personally witnessed and cannot explain, but I am telling you it is real and I need you to trust me. Natalie had said no for times across 2 weeks. On December 22nd she said yes. She told herself it was to stop the conversation. But that night she stood in her closet for 20 minutes choosing what to wear, and that, if she was honest, told her something she wasn't ready to say out loud. A rush of cold air swept through Greystone, ruffling the candles and making heads turn. Into that warm, glowing, perfectly appointed room walked a man who was visibly, completely, not dressed for it. His coat was practical, heavy-duty, worn for actual weather. His boots were clean but unmistakably work boots. His shirt was collared and his jaw freshly shaved, but there was something in the way he moved that was different from every other man in that room. Less performance. More presence. He was breathing hard. Like he had been running. He stopped inside the entrance, scanning. His eyes found her. And the moment they did, something in his face shifted, not relief. Something more complicated. The expression of a man who had braced for her to be gone, and didn't know what to do with her still being there. He walked to the table. Stood across from her. "Miss Hargrove," he said. "I'm Marcus Delaney. And I owe you the most thorough apology of my life." She looked at him. His eyes were deep brown and absolutely steady and were not performing a single thing. "Sit down," she said. He Saturday. He told her without being asked. "My daughter Cora had an asthma attack at 4 o'clock this afternoon. She's 7. The school called me on the job site. I got there, the paramedics were already with her, she was scared." He stopped. Steadied himself. Started again. "We spent 2 hours at the ER. They released her at 6:30. I got her to my neighbor, and I ran." He looked at her directly. "Literally ran. 6 blocks. I couldn't get a cab on Christmas Eve." Natalie was very still. "She's okay?" "She's okay. Home. She's already corrected Mrs. Paulson's card game twice, which means she's completely herself." A ghost of a smile faded. "I should have found a way to call. I know that. I didn't have your number, only Renata's, and I couldn't reach her. I kept thinking," he put his hands flat on the table. "I kept thinking, who waits 40 minutes on Christmas Eve? I figured you'd be gone." He looked at her with something raw and undefended. "Why are you still here?" he asked. Natalie considered the question seriously. "I don't entirely know," she said. "But I'm glad I am." They talked for 3 hours. Greystone's staff stayed patient. The string quartet cycled through its repertoire twice. The candles burned down and were replaced. The couple at the next table left, probably to tell someone about the CEO who waited, and what walked through the door when she did. Marcus talked the way people talk when they have nothing to perform. Gary, Indiana. Youngest of 4. Community college cut short when money ran out. 7 years working construction until he'd earned site foreman. Genuinely proud of the kind of work you could touch and live inside. He'd met his wife Simone at a church barbecue when they were both 24. She'd laughed at something he said before he finished saying it, and he'd decided right there she was the funniest person he'd ever meet. They moved to Chicago when she got her nursing job at Rush. Cora arrived the following year. He paused when the story reached what came after. The way people pause when a word they say every day still costs them something. "Ovarian cancer," he said. Diagnosed when Cora was 2. "We fought for 2 years. A breath. She fought. I just held the rope." "What do you want Cora to know about her?" Natalie asked. He looked at her like the question deserved real thought. That she was brave enough to be the whole version of herself. Not the quiet version. The full one. And I want Cora to do the same. Natalie told him things too. Not the corporate biography. The other things. Her mother in Evanston who still called every Sunday. The photographs in a storage box of a younger woman with bare feet on a summer porch. Preston, just the shape of it. What it had cost her. Marcus listened with his complete attention. When she finished, he said, "That's a heavy thing to carry as a conclusion about people." It felt rational. My mother used to say being rational about love is like being strategic about rain. You can manage it. Carry an umbrella. But you can't schedule it. You just have to decide if you're going to go outside anyway. Natalie looked at him across the table. At this man who had run through a snowstorm to keep a commitment he could easily have broken, and sat down and told the truth, and listened like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. She laughed. The real one arrived before she could approve it. Unstudied. The one that made her nose scrunch. Marcus looked at her with the expression of a man memorizing something. She didn't sleep. At 7 in the morning she went shopping. Not delegated, not curated, herself, in a store still open on Christmas, walking the aisles and choosing things with her own hands. A purple winter coat, because 7-year-olds with opinions choose purple. A telescope that folded into a backpack. Books. A card she wrote in her car in the parking lot, her handwriting slightly unpracticed from years of typing. For Cora, "I heard you had a scary day yesterday. You were braver than you know." This is from someone who thinks the world needs more people who ask good questions and correct card games. Merry Christmas. Natalie. She texted Marcus. He texted back that Cora had been asking about her since 7 a.m., which he found alarming given that he'd only mentioned a friend from dinner. She drove to West 47th Street. The apartment was small and warm and fully lived in, drawings on the refrigerator, a teetering stack of library books, a little plastic Christmas tree on the windowsill with mismatched ornaments and a handmade paper star on top, lopsided, made by Cora. Cora herself appeared from the hallway in dinosaur pajamas, still wearing the hospital bracelet on her small wrist, hair in 2 lopsided puffs, and examined Natalie with the frank assessment of a child who has not learned to pretend she isn't looking. "You're the friend from dinner," she said. "I am." "Are you nice?" "I'm trying to be." Cora nodded slowly. "Daddy says trying counts." She opened the gift with focus ceremony. When she found the telescope she made a sound that was more physical event than word, and immediately pointed it at a pigeon on the fire escape, which she declared was a hawk. "That's a pigeon," Marcus said. "It might be a hawk," Cora said with complete certainty. Natalie sat on the worn sofa with coffee in a chipped mug and looked at the lopsided paper star on the little plastic Christmas tree, and felt something. Not lightning. Something quieter. A window painted shut for years, finally giving way. She stayed 2 hours. When she left, Cora hugged her at the door, total, unsolicited, the grip of a child who has made an irreversible decision about a person. Natalie stood in the hallway after the door closed and pressed one hand against the wall and just breathed. She had not been held like that in a very long time. January. February. March. Not dramatic. Not announced. Just real. Saturday mornings. Occasional Wednesdays. Homework at the kitchen table. The spider incident, Cora, panicked, Natalie capturing it in a glass without flinching, Cora awarding her the title of brave with the gravity of someone conferring an honor. Marcus would come home from work to find them there, Cora doing homework, Natalie on her laptop, existing in the same space the way people do when they've stopped performing for each other. He'd drop his keys on the hook, wash the sight dust from his hands, ask if anyone wanted dinner, and it was the most ordinary thing in the world, and it was also, quietly, the best part of Natalie's week. One Tuesday in March, after a brutal board meeting, she came over and sat at his kitchen table with the silence of someone who'd been in a fight and won and didn't feel good about it. Marcus made coffee and asked nothing, and that was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in months. Cora, watching from the sofa with a cartoon running unwatched, eventually came and sat beside her. "You look sad," she said. "Hard day," Natalie said. Cora was quiet. Then, Daddy said rich people don't wait for people like us. Natalie turned to look at her. "When he told me about your dinner," Cora explained. "He said he was late and he thought you'd be gone because rich people don't usually wait for people like us." She looked at Natalie with full directness. "But you waited." Natalie was very still. "I waited," she said. Cora nodded like a judge confirming a ruling. "I'm glad. Because if you hadn't, we wouldn't have met. And I think we were supposed to." Natalie looked at this 7-year-old with her mother's laugh waiting somewhere in her chest, and felt something break open behind her sternum, not painfully. Like a door that had been stuck and finally, swung free. "I think so too," she said quietly. She should have known the peace wouldn't hold. It never did. Not with her. The story ran in mid-April. A proper business outlet, the kind board members cleared their schedules to call about. A reporter had found the Christmas Eve dinner. The photograph, it turned out, had come from the couple at the next table who'd posted it to social media months ago. "Pretty sure that's the Hargrove tech CEO alone at Christmas dinner LOL. It had sat dormant and then been found by someone who knew what to do with it. The piece was surgical. Not CEO dates construction worker. More precise, questions arise about Hargrove CEO stability as company approaches pivotal acquisition period. Her name. Marcus's name. The South Side. Unconventional associations. In the third paragraph, a quote from a source described only as a longtime advisor to Hargrove Technologies. She recognized the language immediately. She had heard those sentence structures in board meetings for a decade. She knew exactly whose voice it was. Preston Cole did not appear in the article. But she felt his fingerprints the way you feel a cold before the fever, in the air, before you know you're sick. He had spent 8 months quietly consulting 2 of her longest-standing board members. She had known and watched and stayed above it. He had waited for something to use. And she had handed him one without knowing. Walter Pruitt called at 8 in the morning. She let him finish and said, "I'll see you at Thursday's board meeting," and hung up. Then she texted Marcus, "Can I come over tonight? I need to tell you something." Cora was at Mrs. Paulson's. The apartment was quiet. She sat across from him at the kitchen table and told him everything. Not the curated version. The whole architecture. The company and what it was worth. The real reason she'd said "I work in tech" instead of the truth. Preston, not just the shape this time, but the details. What had been taken? Why she'd held on to the version of their early weeks where she was just a woman and he was just a man and none of the rest existed in the room. He listened the whole way through. When she finished, the kitchen was very still. "How long?" he said. "From the beginning." He nodded slowly. Looked at his hands. "I kept telling myself I was in over my head with you. Not in a bad way. In a real way. You moved at a different speed than anything in my life. And I kept showing up anyway because it felt true." He paused. "Now I'm trying to figure out how much of what I thought was true actually was. Marcus. Was I a project?" He said it quietly. No accusation. Just the honest question of a man trying to be fair to himself. A different kind of life you were trying on for a while. "You were the realest thing in my day," she said. "Steady. Every day. I held on to not telling you because it was the first time in years someone looked at me without the $1 billion in the room. I was selfish about it. I know that." He looked at Simone's photograph on the wall. Back at Natalie. "My daughter has already decided about you," he said quietly. "You understand that, right? She's 7. She doesn't have a reversal mechanism. She just loves people." "I know." So if this becomes something that gets too complicated for you, he stopped. His jaw was tight. I need to know before she's any further in. I'm not going anywhere, she said. I need you to believe that. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I need some time to think. She nodded. Stood up. Picked up her bag. At the door she stopped. I know what it looks like from your side, she said. I know I have no right to ask for trust right now. But I meant every morning at that table. Every cup of coffee. Every Saturday. Every single one. She left. She drove home. Sat in the penthouse she'd returned to, the one that looked exactly like her life and felt less like it every day. She waited for him to text. He didn't. 3 days. No text from Marcus. She told herself it was reasonable. He needed time. She had dropped something large on him, and he was a man who thought before he spoke. She knew that about him. She respected it. 5 days. She passed his street on the way to a meeting. Did not stop. A week. She texted, just checking in. No pressure. I hope you and Cora are okay. He read it. Didn't reply. She put the phone face down and went back to work and sat in a board meeting and gave a flawless presentation on the Q1 acquisition strategy, and afterwards stood alone in the glass corridor by the elevator and felt the specific cold of a person who has been excised from a life they didn't realize they needed. 10 days. Renata found her in her office at 8 in the evening staring at a document she hadn't turned the page of in 40 minutes. National. I'm fine. You are not fine. You haven't been fine in 10 days, and I have been watching you get quieter and smaller, and that is not something I'm going to let happen without saying something. Natalie looked up. Her eyes were tired in a way that had nothing to do with work. He needs time, she said. I know, Renata said gently. But you also need to not disappear into yourself while he takes it. She sat down. Tell me what's actually happening. Natalie was quiet for a moment. I think I might have lost them, she said. The words came out smaller than she intended. Both of them. And I didn't know until it happened how much of my actual life they had become. She pressed her hand flat on the desk. I went back to the penthouse and it looks exactly like it's supposed to, and it feels like a hotel I've been staying in for 4 years, and I don't know when that happened. Renata was quiet. She asked me once, Natalie said, if I waited because rich people don't wait for people like them. She looked at Renata. I did wait. And then I didn't tell him the truth. And I don't know if waiting and then lying is better or worse than not waiting at all. It's better, Renata said. Because you're here fighting for it. That's different from every person who would have walked out that door. Natalie looked out the window at the Chicago night. What if he doesn't come back? She asked. It was the most unguarded thing anyone at Hargrove Technologies had heard her say in 4 years. Renata reached across the desk and put her hand over her best friend's hand. Then we figure that out, she said. But I don't think that's what's happening. Natalie didn't answer. She looked at the city. She thought about a lopsided paper star on a little plastic Christmas tree. She thought about the sound a 7-year-old makes when she finds a telescope. She thought about a man who ran 6 blocks through December snow because he wanted his daughter to see him show up. She thought, I have to earn this. She just didn't know how yet. Thursday's board meeting was the one that was designed to break her. Walter Pruitt presented the motion carefully, an executive conduct and reputation management protocol, which was a document about her personal life dressed in the language of governance. It required her to submit any significant personal relationship to board review during active acquisition periods. It was 4 pages of fine print that meant one thing: control. The vote was going to pass. She had counted. She let them finish. She stood up. I'd like to speak, she said, before we vote. The room went quiet. They had learned over 11 years that the quieter she spoke, the more precisely she was about to cut. I built this company, she said. 11 years ago, in a rented office, with 3 employees and a pitch deck I revised 47 times. I have made this board a great deal of money. I have not once compromised my integrity to do it. Every person in this room knows that's true because every one of you has checked. She looked at Walter Pruitt. For years ago, a man I trusted used my personal life as a weapon against this company. Someone in this room helped him find a new way to do it. I don't know which of you yet. I will. She let that sit. What you are putting to a vote today is a mechanism to control who I love. And I want to be absolutely clear, I will not accept it. She looked around the table slowly. I am in a relationship with a man who is honest, hardworking, and good. He is not a liability. He is not a conflict of interest. He is a person. The fact that he works with his hands and lives on the south side is making some of you uncomfortable. That is not my problem to solve. She picked up her portfolio. His daughter asked me once whether rich people wait for people like them. She looked at the room. I waited. And I intend to keep being the kind of person who does. If that disqualifies me in this room, you have the mechanisms to act on it. But I would encourage you to think carefully about how your shareholders, and the press, will read a majority vote to regulate the CEO's personal life because her partner doesn't have a stock portfolio. She sat down. The motion failed. 6-3. She walked out. Stood in the glass corridor by the elevator. Let the shaking find her hands now that there was no one watching. She had one. She had no one to tell. She took the elevator down to the lobby and sat in her car in the parking garage for 10 minutes and then drove to West 47th Street. Not because she'd planned to. Because there was nowhere else she could think of to go. She sat outside in the car. She wasn't going to knock. She had said she would give him time and she meant it. She just needed to be near. Near the building where the right version of her life was, even if she couldn't enter it. She sat there for 20 minutes. Then the building door opened. Marcus came out wearing his work coat, a bag in his hand, and he stopped completely when he saw her car. She rolled down the window. I wasn't going to knock, she said immediately. She stopped. Started again. I won the board vote. And you're the first person I wanted to tell. And I know I don't have the right to be here right now and I'm sorry, I'll go. Natalie. She stopped. He walked to the car. Crouched down so he was at eye level with her through the window. His face was tired. Something in it was also, quietly, less closed than it had been. Cora asked about you, he said. Her chest tightened. Is she okay? She's fine. He stopped. Exhaled. She asked if you stopped being her friend. The words landed like something falling from a height. What did you tell her? Natalie asked. I told her I didn't know yet. He looked at her directly. Which was honest. And which she accepted for about 6 minutes before she told me that friends don't just stop and I should fix it. Natalie's throat was tight. She's 7 and she's already wiser than most of my board. She's her mother's daughter. He looked at her for a long moment. I've been thinking. I know. About what you told me. About Preston. About why you didn't say the full truth. He paused. I'm not angry about the money. I need you to know that. I've never cared about the money. I was scared about something else. What? That when it got complicated, board pressure, media, all of it, you would decide I was a cost you hadn't calculated. He said it quietly. That Cora and I were a complication that didn't survive contact with your real life. You are my real life, she said. The penthouse is a place I sleep. Saturdays at your table are my real life. He was quiet. I stood up in front of my board today, she said. I told them your daughter asked me if rich people wait for people like you. I said it in front of cameras and recorders and 9 board members who have the power to remove me. She looked at him. I'm not managing this, Marcus. I'm not containing it. I'm in it. Completely. He stayed crouched at her car window for a long moment. Then he said, "Come upstairs." The apartment was exactly the same. Drawings on the refrigerator. Books on the coffee table. The little plastic Christmas tree, still in the corner even in April, because Cora had declared it too good to put away. Cora was on the sofa in her school sweatshirt, attempting a jigsaw puzzle with the focused energy of someone winning a private war against 500 pieces. She looked up when the door opened. She saw Natalie. She didn't rush over. She didn't shout. She looked at her for a long, careful moment, the way children look at things they have been worried about and are now verifying. Then she said, "Did you stop being my friend?" The question was so direct and so small and so completely without armor that Natalie felt it move through her like weather. She crossed the room and sat on the coffee table in front of Cora so they were at eye level. "No," she said. "I did not stop being your friend. I was giving your dad space to think. But I am your friend. That part doesn't change." Cora studied her face the way her father studied faces, fully, without rush. "Promise," she said. "Promise," Natalie said. Cora nodded. Looked down at her puzzle. Placed a piece with decisive accuracy. Then looked back up. "You should have told him the truth from the beginning," she said, with the matter-of-fact delivery of a 7-year-old who has processed the situation and arrived at a verdict. Behind Natalie, she heard Marcus make a quiet sound that was almost a laugh. "You're right," Natalie said. "I should have." Cora appeared satisfied. "Okay," she said, and returned to her puzzle. Natalie looked over her shoulder at Marcus. He was leaning in the doorway with his arms crossed and an expression she had never seen on him before, something full, something she didn't have a word for that sat between gratitude and relief and something softer than either. "Coffee," he said. "Please," she said. Part 10, The Public Choice. 2 weeks later, the annual Hargrove Technologies shareholder gala. It was the kind of event Natalie had hosted for 8 years, a ballroom at the Chicago Hilton, 600 people, live-streamed to investors in 4 countries. Business press. Society press. Cameras everywhere. She had always attended alone. This year, she called Marcus the day before. "I want you to come," she said. "To the gala. With me." Silence on the line. "Natalie. I know what I'm asking. I know what it will look like. There will be cameras and questions, and some of those questions will be about you and about us, and they will be uncomfortable." She paused. "But I stood up in a board meeting and said your daughter's name. I want to stand somewhere with you next to me. If you're willing." Another silence. Longer. "Who watches Cora?" he said. "Renata has already volunteered. She said, and I'm quoting, that she would be honored and also that she likes card games." She heard him exhale. Something releasing. "What do I wear?" he said. "Whatever you want to wear," she said. "Come as yourself." He came in a dark suit she'd never seen, borrowed from his brother, slightly large in the shoulders and absolutely right in every way that mattered. He walked into that ballroom beside her and she felt 600 eyes adjust and recalibrate, and she did not flinch from a single one. Walter Pruitt saw them from across the room. His face did something complicated. He looked away first. A reporter from a financial outlet caught her at the bar. "Miss Hargrove, your guest tonight." "His name is Marcus Delaney," she said clearly, in the voice she used when she was done being managed. "He is a construction foreman from the south side of Chicago. He is the kindest person I have met in a decade. And he is here because I asked him to be." She looked at the reporter directly. "Write it however you like." The reporter wrote it down. Later that night, in a quiet corner of the ballroom while the speeches were happening and the cameras were pointed elsewhere, Marcus leaned close and said, "You know, you just handed them a story." "I know," she said. "You're not worried?" She looked at him. At the borrowed suit and the steady eyes and the man who had run through December snow to keep a promise and sat in an ER with his daughter's hand in his and then come anyway, 40 minutes late, to a table where someone was still waiting. The story they're going to write, she said, is the true one. I can live with that. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached over and took her hand, in the middle of the room, in front of every camera and every guest and the 600 people who would post about it by morning. He held it like it was not a statement. Like it was just the next natural thing. And it was. Greystone looked exactly the same. Pine garlands on the staircase rail. Candles on every table. The string quartet in the corner. The whole beautiful room exactly as it had been 2 years ago when a woman sat alone at a table for two and almost walked out. But this time, when Natalie Hargrove came through the door, the table for three was already full. Marcus stood up when she walked in, the way his mother had probably taught him, the way he did things that were right without making them performances. He was wearing the navy jacket he'd bought himself this time, fitted, exactly him. And beside him, in a dress chosen with the gravity of a 7-year-old dressing for an occasion that matters, sat Cora. She had done something architectural with her hair. There was a rhinestone clip. There was clear intention. When she saw Natalie, she pointed. "You're almost late." "Traffic," Natalie said. "We were here at 6:50, Cora reported. "Punctuality is a value." "I'm learning," Natalie said. James the waiter appeared, the same James, who recognized them all now and whose smile was the warm, genuine kind that couldn't be faked. "Welcome back," he said, to all three of them. "Thank you," said Marcus. Cora examined the menu with executive focus. Natalie sat down and looked across the table at the man who had come in late and breathless 2 Christmases ago and sat down and told her the truth. At the child who had decided, with the clear authority of 7-year-old certainty, that she was supposed to be in their life. At the candles between them and the snow falling outside and the string quartet playing something that floated over the whole warm room. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked. 2 years ago, she said. "This table. That I almost left." "But you didn't." "I didn't." He looked at her the way he always looked at her. The way that had no agenda in it, no calculation, no performance. The steady, unhurried, completely present way. "What made you stay?" he asked. She thought about it honestly. "Something told me," she said, "to give it one more minute." He smiled. "Just slightly." 1 minute. 1 minute. Cora looked up from her menu. "Are you being romantic?" she asked, with the particular suspicion of a child who has heard the word and is monitoring for it. "We might be," Marcus said. Cora appeared to weigh this. "Okay," she said, returning to the menu. "I'm getting the pasta." "You always get the pasta," Marcus said. "Because it is always correct," Cora said. Natalie laughed. The real one, unstudied, unbidden, the kind that arrived before she could consider it. Marcus looked at her when it happened, the way he always did, like it was something worth noting. Outside, the first snow of the season was falling on Chicago, coming down soft and thick and impartial, covering the south side and the loop and the penthouse she no longer lived in and the brownstone on West 47th Street where she had left a book on the kitchen table that morning and where her coat was on the hook by the door. Covering the restaurant where a woman had once sat alone and almost given up. Covering the city she had built her empire in and had finally found her way home inside. James brought the drinks. Cora immediately corrected something about the way her water glass was placed, which he accepted with enormous grace. And Natalie Hargrove, the CEO, the billion-dollar builder, the woman who had decided love was a liability she could no longer afford, sat in the warm room with the man who had run through the snow and the daughter who had known before either of them, and thought. 1 more minute. That's all it ever takes. 1 more minute, and everything changes. That's where we leave them. In the warm light. In the good room. In the life that almost didn't happen. Natalie Hargrove learned that power without someone to come home to is just a long day at the office. And that the most courageous thing she ever did was not build a billion-dollar company. It was sit in a restaurant on Christmas Eve and wait one more minute. Marcus Delaney learned that grief is not the last chapter. That you can carry the people you've lost as light instead of weight. That Simone's photograph on the wall was not a closed door, it was a window, left open, letting everything in. And Cora? Cora already knew. She knew from the moment she saw a woman still sitting there. She knew when someone helped with Tommy's apples. She knew when a friend came back. Children always know the people worth keeping. The rest of us just take a little longer to catch up. Thank you so much for being here for this story. If it moved something in you, if it reminded you that love doesn't have an income requirement, that the right person might arrive 40 minutes late for the best possible reason, and that sometimes one more minute of patience is the bravest thing you will ever do, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave us a comment. Tell us what stayed with you. Tell us which moment hit you hardest. We'll be back soon with another story. That's where we leave them. In the warm light. In the good room. In the life that almost didn't happen. Natalie Hargrove learned that power without someone to come home to is just a long day at the office. And that the most courageous thing she ever did was not build a billion-dollar company. It was sit in a restaurant on Christmas Eve and wait one more minute. Marcus Delaney learned that grief is not the last chapter. That you can carry the people you've lost as light instead of weight. That Simone's photograph on the wall was not a closed door, it was a window, left open, letting everything in. And Cora? Cora already knew. She knew from the moment she saw a woman still sitting there. She knew when someone helped with Tommy's apples. She knew when a friend came back. Children always know the people worth keeping. The rest of us just take a little longer to catch up. Thank you so much for being here for this story. If it moved something in you, if it reminded you that love doesn't have an income requirement, that the right person might arrive 40 minutes late for the best possible reason, and that sometimes one more minute of patience is the bravest thing you will ever do, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave us a comment. Tell us what stayed with you. Tell us which moment hit you hardest. We'll be back soon with another story. Until then, stay open. Stay kind. Stay in the room. And remember, the people worth everything sometimes walk in late, out of breath, covered in snow, and change everything entirely.